agenda. We're going to have opening remarks by Mayor Craig Amo. Then we're going to hear from the president of the Laurel Board of Trade about their organization. We have a informative session about safety for businesses in the time of COVID. We're going to hear from the state of Maryland, the Governor's Office of Small Minority and Women Business Affairs about procurement and state resources. And then at the end, we are going to have a session that's just open for questions. At the end of every speaker as well, we'll have open for questions for that individual speaker. Next slide for me, please, Brooke. Okay, so just a few reminders. Please make sure that you have muted your microphone for the best listening experience. And then if you do have any questions throughout the entire presentation, please use the chat box feature to ask the questions. I will be monitoring that throughout the entire presentation. And this event is also being recorded, so you're able to watch it again at a later date. And the link is posted in the chat box for Laurel TV's YouTube page of where it will be featured. Next slide. Now we'll hear from Mayor Craig Amo for some opening remarks. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Good evening to everyone, and thank you for attending tonight's virtual town hall meeting in partnership with the Laurel Board of Trade. We've been wanting to do this event to provide vital information to all of you, as well as for you to provide feedback to us here tonight. So please take that opportunity. Again, I want to thank our business community for choosing Laurel to start your business and to grow your business. And want to thank the speakers ahead of time for taking the opportunity out of your busy schedules to be with us tonight and pass some information on to all of our business community, which I know will be beneficial to all. We also know that it's been a very difficult time for you and your business, your employees, as well as your families. However, the city is here to offer any support and assistance that we can. Since the start of this emergency, this health emergency, COVID-19, we have waived fees for temporary banners and signage for our businesses. We have made the process easier to obtain outdoor seating permits for our restaurants and our food businesses, as well as waiving food application fees and seating fees as well. If you have not taken advantage of these, either one or both, I encourage you to contact the city's Department of Economic and Community Development at their email address, ecd@laurel.md.us. Our goal is to continue to get our businesses operating and open in a way that is safe for the community. I encourage you to follow the CDC guidelines, health department from the state and the county, as well as the city's own health officer. They're going to provide you information tonight that will help you in these uncertain times. Just a couple reminders, and I want to remind the business community, the city of Laurel will open on July the 1st. We're going to start bringing back some of our staff. We do have a new virtual platform of conducting business at the Municipal Center. Citizens and business owners will be able to come in to the lobby area, which we call login lobby area at the Municipal Center. You can sign in and get permits and other things that you'll need. So that information was announced last week, and again, I encourage you to go to our website and sign up for that. And this way, if you need information or permits or other things from the city, you'll already be ready to go. I do want to remind everybody about the census. The April deadline has been extended. So we want to remind all of those residents and businesses, remind your employees to please fill out that information and get it back to the city, get it back to the Census Bureau. If you need further information, you can contact the city's, you can go on the city's website at thecityoflaurel.org, and there's some more information on there as well. We've done pretty good. We're a little bit over 61% for self-response, but we really do need to hit that 100 mark, and I encourage you again to fill that census information out. It's a very easy questionnaire. We want to also remind you to continue to wear the mask. It is going to help slow the spread. I know at each different level of government, somebody's got a different message, but I think most have always said wearing the mask will help slow the spread. I encourage you to do that. If you come into any city building, you will be required to be wearing a mask. There'll be other measures that we'll be taking. We'll be doing temperatures and when you come through the building as well. We encourage you to call for appointments first and try to do it online or over the phone. But if not, you have to come into City Hall. Those will be a couple steps that you will have to take. I encourage you to contact us, as I just said, if you have questions. And I want to remind you as well that you know, some of this we're going through, some of this is new to the city and our employees as well, and we're all moving forward in a positive way. So it may take a little bit longer. There may be a couple more questions that need to be asked. We ask that you bear with us, and we'll make sure you get that information. Again, thank you to all of you. I want to especially thank the hardworking staff in the Department of Economic and Community Development. I appreciate all that they've done and been doing these past several months. And we're not done, and they're committed to working with all of our business community. Again, we are all in this together, and it's important for us to work together. So I encourage you, if you have questions or you have statements tonight, please make sure that information is passed on to us. So I thank you all very much. And Leigha, thank you for what you're doing. I appreciate all the work that you and Christian and the staff have been doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mayor, for being on the call today with us. Brooke, next slide. So now we're going to hear from Laurel Board of Trade President Marilyn Johnson, and she will share some information about their organization. Marilyn?
All right, so as Leigha said, I'm Marilyn Johnson, President of the Laurel Board of Trade this year. In the early 1960s, a group of Main Street merchants formed an association to promote businesses on Main Street. Eventually, it expanded to include all businesses in Laurel and changed its name to the Laurel Board of Trade. In 1990, the LBOT incorporated as a 501c6 nonprofit. The LBOT has always felt a commission to support local small businesses, so it has organized and hosted the annual Main Street Festival in May, Riverfest in September, Back to School in August, and Trick or Treat on Main Street in October. It has hosted informational business forums, networking events, and shared business-related news and information for over 40 years. And like many longtime organizations, it lost energy and focus for a while. But I'm happy to say in the last 18 months, the current board of directors, who are all local business owners who volunteer their time, have been working tirelessly to re-energize and revitalize the LBOT with the goal of expanding membership, provide more and better opportunities to support the business community, and encourage more participation by the membership. As a starting point, the officers and board of directors have rewritten and updated the bylaws for LBOT. We have contracted with local business My Content to create a completely new professional website that provides a platform to share information with members and the community and automate a lot of functions. We have added an informational monthly newsletter. We have restarted hosting monthly business networking events, highlighting a different local restaurant each time. Now that we are dealing with COVID, we are exploring ways to adapt these networking events soon. We have plans to host quarterly informational business forums. We host a TV show on Laurel TV in conjunction with the city called About Town, interviewing local business owners in each episode. And eventually each episode ends up on YouTube, so it's available all the time. Each director and officer on the board has agreed to take on duties and responsibilities to maintain the forward momentum. Our administrative coordinator, Maureen Rogers, has established several LBOT Facebook pages and joined LBOT to other pages that support local small businesses and restaurants during COVID. The officers meet monthly with the mayor and city officials to share information and concerns about the business community. We have monitored and shared business-related COVID information from the federal, state, county, and city sources and shared it through our newsletters and Facebook pages, and so much more. Now, we need the rest of the business community to come on board as members, share your skills and expertise benefit all in the business community, join committees, participate in events, and be part of creating and maintaining a vibrant business community in Laurel. To join or renew your membership to the LBOT, go to the LBOT website at laurelboardoftrade.org. To get frequent, up-to-date information about businesses, COVID, upcoming events, and more, join the LBOT Facebook pages. And although the office is closed during COVID, you can reach our coordinator by phone at 301-483-0838 or by email at laurelboardoftrade383@gmail.com. Thank you very much, and I hope you will join or renew your membership and be part of the new Laurel Board of Trade. Thank you. Next slide.
Thank you, Marilyn. Can you share the Laurel Board of Trade website with us, just if someone wants to learn more information?
Okay, it's www.laurelboardoftrade.org.
Okay, thank you. If anyone has any questions for Marilyn at this time, please use the chat box to ask. The chat box is in the top right-hand corner of the screen. It's a little talk bubble. You can click on that and send a chat. So if you do have any questions, add those questions in there at this time. Okay, so I think we don't have any questions for you, Marilyn, at this time, but we are going to do the Q&A at the end of the event. So if anyone has any questions for Marilyn, you can still put it in the chat and we'll ask at the end of the event. Thank you, Marilyn, so much for being with us tonight and sharing information about the Laurel Board of Trade.
Welcome. Thank you.
Next slide. So next we have Laurel Chief Health Officer, Dr. Unegbu, will discuss safety for businesses in the time of COVID-19. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much, Leigha. I appreciate that. Good afternoon, everybody. Next slide, please. Yeah, I'm going to be talking about safety for businesses in the time of COVID-19. As you all know, right now, we actually have a reopening process that is going on now. So the businesses that are actually reopening, they're going to need certain guidelines. Just be mindful of obtaining more information if you need. Go to the CDC website. Also, you can look up on the OSHA, the HHS website on the OSHA and kind of get some more information that can guide you to ensure that you're in compliance. They're in the CDC, they have certain business toolkits that will help you in terms of your reopening your business. Next slide, please. As you all know, from March of 16th, we've been hearing, if you hear fever, if you see anybody coughing, if you have shortness of breath, hey, it's an emergency, you got to get them to the nearest place. But now, I think based on what's going on now, everyone can have mild to severe symptoms, and you just have to make sure that you seek help or you go to the nearest medical center to obtain care. Of course, there's no cure to this COVID-19, but prevention is better than cure. So we're actually trying to do certain preventive measures that will be able to help us to ensure that we don't keep on spreading the disease. You just heard from the Mayor Mo as he stressed about wearing masks. And my topic is going to touch up on that a lot because that's actually one of the biggest strategic way to be able to cut down on the disease. Older adults are at risk, especially when they have underlying conditions such as heart disease, lung disease. This puts them at risk of developing more serious complications from the COVID-19. So it's very essential, as you know, in the workforce, we might have the older adults that are working out there. We have to be careful with them to ensure that for their safety, and we have to follow certain guidelines to ensure we don't continue the spread of the disease. Next slide, please. So just just to be able to bring you back in the definition, coronavirus, they called it 2019 because it started off in December, somewhere in November, December, is a respiratory disease that causes SARS CoV-2 virus. And it spread from China, Wuhan, China, and has spread all over the globe, including the United States at this time. So depending on the severity of this COVID-19, international impacts, outbreak conditions, which include those rising to levels of pandemic, can affect all aspects of daily life, including travel. As you all know, with the travels, the airlines, they're being grounded, so we're not flying anymore. The trades, in terms of the business, as well, that was mentioned here, it has been affected, and tourism has been affected severely. Food supplies, there's been a high demand of produce, but the supply of it kind of slowed down. So that kind of affected us, and of course, in the market too. So this virus has actually caused tremendous impact in our lifestyle. And I think now that we're reopening, we need to be able to find a proper way to make sure that we cut down on the spread before we go back into the workforce. Next slide. So I pretty much have, businesses and employers, there are certain recommendations, like I mentioned, from the CDC website, for them, a certain approach that they have to take to resuming their businesses. And the three categories that I actually categorize it in my presentation that you're going to hear, it's more of make sure you have a plan, make sure you're prepared, and make sure you respond to anything that may come up. So those categories, these are the areas that you should be able to have those categories in terms of conduct, daily health checks, and Mayor Mo just touched up on that when he talked about in the City Hall, the plans to be able to do some tests, do some temperature checks, and also monitor people in case they are sick. And the strong recommendation of stay home if you're actually sick. Conduct hazard assessment of the workplace. The employers or establishments have to ensure that the environment is safe. And I think in the administrators of the City Hall have actually taken a dramatic approach to ensure that the environment is safe before they can be able to reopen. We encourage employees to wear the face cloth, and the mayor just touched up on that, because this is a big way that you can actually reduce the infection because of the droplets. So, and then implement policies and procedures for social distancing. Imagine in your workplace where people are in cubicles and they're pretty close to each other, but just imagine now when you go back to work, the cubicles are going to be a little bit distant away from you. And that's very essential to be able to help in reducing this spread. And then finally, improve building ventilations and systems. And kudos to the mayor for establishing that or making sure that that was done in the City Hall. And all businesses should be able to do that by looking into the event systems to make sure that it's sanitized and clean before they can be able to reopen. Next slide. So again, plan for COVID-19. COVID-19 is start to spread mainly through close contact from person to person. Some people without symptoms may even spread this disease. We're still learning about the virus, and severity of illness it causes too. And you've heard a lot about it, people being ventilated, people being on certain medications, and they have all these comorbidities, which eventually causes their demise. So we've heard a lot about that. We have over 100,000 that have actually passed away from this. So now we just have to make sure we reduce that spread and reduce that number so that it doesn't continue to affect our lifestyle. So with the plan to ensure your workplace is conducive for employees to maintain about that 6 feet distance. I'll give you an example. My brother's pharmacy in Laurel Pharmacy, he actually has some signs that actually can show feet where people can show their social distancing. So this is actually going to be the new norm that you're going to start seeing in establishments. In the supermarket, we see some of those signs all over the place, and people are actually adhering to it. So that's one of the biggest way that we can reduce the spread. Plan to ensure that there are hand washing stalls or hand sanitizers available, and make sure the hand sanitizer has at least 60% of alcohol in the workplace. We're not used to seeing these in the workplace. We're not used to seeing all these in restaurants, but now you're going to be able to see that. And this is very essential to be able to help in reducing the spread. And then plan to have disinfectant wipes because surfaces, as you know, even me speaking right now, when I get up from here, it'll be nice for somebody to make sure that they wipe it down with disinfectant wipes, because just those droplets can be on those surfaces for up to days. So you got to make sure that you actually reduce that spread by ensuring that your area is clean. And then plan to have everyone in the establishment wear their face cloths covering at all times. Next slide, please. Next category is to prepare for COVID-19. All employers need to consider how best to decrease the spread of this disease and to lower the impact in your workplace. So one is prepare to prevent and reduce transmission among employees. How well can you be able to do this? Again, I had mentioned about the cubicle spacing. You might have to be able to do that. In terms of the hallways, you might have to have certain directional signs that you're going to put in the hallways. So these are the ways that will help you, that will ensure that there's reduced transmission among employees. Prepare to maintain healthy business operation. The usual norm is when you come in for an interview, you give a firm handshake and you give a good eye contact with the person that you're interviewing with now. But we might have to skip that handshake. So when you now come in, of course, maintain that eye contact, but no more handshake is not recommended at this time, because that's one of the ways that you can reduce the spread. So maintaining business operations, working in the work environment, make sure that it's pretty safe. That will help also. And then prepare to maintain a healthy work environment for your employers. In terms of transportation, if you're using transportation, anyone who's going to be using those transportation have to make sure that they wipe it down with sanitizer wipes, just to ensure that it's safe. And whenever you're carrying anybody, even patients, you want to make sure that that is wiped down and clean at all times. Next slide. And lastly is to respond to COVID-19. It's always good to monitor the federal, state, and local public health communications about COVID-19, because that's one of the ways that will help you to give you more knowledge as to what's going on, and then help you to ensure that you're actually abiding by what needs to be done to reduce the spread. You may want to frequently check the website, the CDC website, because that's, again, information is power, and all the other resources that will help you to guide you. So I recommend to respond by actively encouraging sick employees to stay home. I mentioned that earlier. If you feel like you're sick, just stay home. Follow the guidelines. The employers do know, can look up the guidelines, follow that guideline, and then make sure that the patient comes back, the employee returns back to work in a safe environment. Respond by conducting daily in-person or virtual health checks before entering the workplace. The mayor mentioned that also, by doing the temperature check. Also, making sure you have hand sanitizers available in the entrance of the building. So you can do that too. And whenever anybody shows any signs of feeling ill, it'll be good to be able to have them to stay away from the other employees until you can confirm if it's COVID-19 or not. I believe in the state of Maryland, some of the nursing homes that I go to, they have actually implemented to be doing testing once a week to all the employees. That's a lot, but I think it's going to be helpful because the employees, if you can test them, if you detect, you can keep them away from the workplace. Respond by identifying where and how workers might be exposed. We do have workers that actually in homes where somebody may be infected. So you may want to be able to know about that. So contact tracing is essential in this case. So I think we would like for employers and employees to have some sort of good communication to ensure that you know any possible contacts that you may have, that you could be able to have that communicated to the to your employer. Respond by separating the sick employees, like I had mentioned. Respond when an employee is suspected or confirmed to have COVID-19. If they're suspected or confirmed to have it, it'll be recommended that they stay away from the workplace. Respond by educating the employees. I think this is the biggest one. Employers having more educational resources that will help the employees to be able to understand the scope or the impact of this disease and how to be able to protect themselves and protect others. Wearing the mask, you should actually look at it that you're actually making sure that your coworkers are well and you're not infected them. It's not really all about you. It's got to be all about the others now. Then respond to public transportation users, especially some of our employees, sorry, may be using ride-sharing users or maybe using public transportation. So you have to educate them on how to protect themselves or prevent carrying any of the disease from those public transportations into the workplace. So that's very important to be able to make sure that you reduce the spread. Next slide. So that's my citation. I'm open to any questions if you have any. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next slide. Someone just said, thank you for the great information. So yeah, this is very valuable information for the health and safety of not only businesses, employees, but also the citizens. So it looks like we don't have any more questions at this time, but if you do have any questions, you can write them in the chat box and then we will get back to them at the end in the open question section. So thank you, Dr. Anube, for being here and giving that presentation. Next slide. Next, we have Eduardo D. Hayden, the Small Business Outreach Manager from the Governor's Office of Small Minority and Women Business Affairs.
Thank you, Leigha. I appreciate it. We can go to the next slide. Actually, we can go one more. All right, so basically our office, real quick, explain a couple of things that we oversee. So our office, Governor's Office of Small Minority and Women Business Affairs, the three things that we most focus on is that we're here to try to help connect small minority and women and veteran-owned businesses to the opportunities that exist in both the public and private sectors. We are also in direct oversight, monitoring, and compliance of 3 procurement programs across all 70 state agencies. And we host a broad range of online resources for entrepreneurs and small business owners. And so I'll go over some of these things throughout the presentation. Next slide. So I'm going to start with procurement. The reason why I sort of put this definition up it's not that people don't understand that procurement is the act of obtaining or purchasing goods and services, but I put it up so that I can reference that according to law or mandate in the state of Maryland, it must include a particular process. And so what I'm going to recommend, this is not necessarily the most exciting reading that you're going to do in your life, but if you grab a nice strong cup of coffee and you take a look at COMAR, which is the Code of Maryland regulation, Title 21 will go over what is the mandate and what are the laws that are involved in procurement. And I recommend that you do the reading, again, not because it's going to be an exciting read or anything of that nature, but because it's important and it is necessary. And the more that you know about the process itself, the more knowledgeable you are as you try to engage in doing business with the state of Maryland. Next slide. And so I'm going to go over quickly about which are the state procurement programs that we have. The first is the Small Business Reserve Program. This is a prime contracting program. By that I mean that it's for businesses that are of a particular size to be able to do business directly with the state of Maryland. This has a 15% set aside goal as far as the fiscal year spend that we attempt to do here from the state side. It is race and gender neutral. So we're not interested in the minority status of any business. What we are looking for, however, in the Small Business Reserve is the size of the business. And I'll go over some specifics on that in some other slides. This also has an online vendor registration process. So you can only certify your company as a small business reserve through eMaryland Marketplace. Takes about 20 minutes. You fill out some information, and as long as the information is what it needs to be, then you can have the small business reserve certification. Takes about 20 minutes. The next program is the Minority Business Enterprise Program, or MBE program. That's the longest running, about 40 years now. This is primarily a subcontracting program. There is a 29% aspirational goal. So that means that from the state perspective, we're trying to achieve about 29% spend on a yearly basis. Now, we have not hit that mark yet, but we're not too far from that. So we're doing pretty good as far as that's concerned. This is race and gender specific. So we are looking at a minority status of presumed groups, which are women, African American, Latino, Asian, and there's a couple of other categories or groups in that space. This is an application-based process. So this is going to, they have an online application you can go through, but by meaning it's an application-based, it takes a lot more time. It's not a few minutes. It can take up to 90 days. Part of that is that they'll have a MBE officer that's attached to your application, and then they're going to go through the eligibility aspects of your application to determine whether or not you qualify to be certified as an MBE. Okay. Now, one of the perks, however, is as an MBE, although this is a subcontracting program, if you happen to be a certified MBE, but you are able to obtain a prime contract or a contract as the primary person, any goal that's attached to that contract, MBE goal, you get to perform 50% of that. So as an example, if it's $1 million contract and it has a 20% goal, if you are an MBE and you're the prime contractor, you get to keep half of that 20% for yourself. So you only have to give out the other half, the other 10%, or the other 100,000 if we're talking about dollars. So as an MBE, when you're a prime, you get to perform 50% of the MBE goal for yourself. So that just means you keep more of the money of that contract, and you don't have to share all of it. The last one is the Veteran-Owned Small Business Enterprise Program. That's the newest program. It has gone through some changes over the course of the last year and a half. It's a subcontracting program, 1% aspirational goal. The verification process here is required, meaning we're verifying if you are a veteran. Now, in the past, apologize, looks like my neighbor's cutting his grass at this moment. The actual verification of your veteran status, in the past, it used to be that we only accepted if you were verified through the federal government and their Vet Biz program. So that has changed now, and what we've done is that we will continue to accept if you're already verified through the federal Vet Biz program. We now have it so that you can actually, if you don't have that, you can just go through a state of Maryland process. And so you do that through Emma, which is our online platform. There you'll have to submit what they call a DD-214 form that goes through Veterans Affairs in the state of Maryland. Once they do their verification, a number is given to you, and then we will sort of work out through our office the back end of that eligibility process. Takes about a few days. So those are the 3 state procurement programs. You can go to the next slide. So a little bit deeper into SBR. Again, I mentioned it's based on the size of the business. We're looking at 2 things, or one of 2 things. We're looking at how many employees you have as a business, or your 3-year average revenue, right? So it's based on those 2 things. Some of the other things that we're looking for as far as eligibility standards is that you have to be a for-profit business. You have to be any kind of for-profit business other than a broker. So you cannot be a broker. The business has to be independently owned and operated. It cannot be a subsidiary of another business. And here's sort of the most important one, because a lot of people get the answer to this question wrong in the questionnaire. The business cannot be dominant in its field of operation. What we mean by that is not how good or how great are you as a business. We know all of you guys are great. What we're trying to determine is that you're not the Under Armour, the Amazons, or the Walmarts of your industry. So that's what that's referring to. Now, a quick side note here, if you're a business and you have not existed for 3 years, we're going to take a look at the gross sales average for whatever period of time you've been in business. If you're newly formed and you don't have any gross sales or average sales to put forward, we're going to take a look at the employment levels or number of employees that you have. Next slide. So here's the thresholds for the SBR industry thresholds. So if you can see there, anywhere from retail to architectural and engineering, each one has different thresholds that you have to meet depending on whatever industry you operate. As an example, again, retail, 25 employees or 3 million in gross sales, or if, let's say you're in service operations, up to 100 employees or 10 million in gross sales. Next. The fiscal year 2019 spend for the SBR program was 477 million. These are actual payments that went out. And these payments went out to 1,788 firms that are part of our SBR program at this point. Next. On the MBE side, although we are the office that oversees compliance to this program, the Maryland Department of Transportation is actually the state's official certification agency. They will handle your application. They will see to it that you can get certified and what's necessary for that. Once that happens, we sort of come into the fray as far as overseeing compliance to the transactions that are going on and other related issues to the procurement process. So in the state of Maryland, what you're going to get is you'll get an MBE certification. Now, eligibility will be determined by the minority status, the percentage of ownership, which is 51% or more ownership of the business, control, level of control that the owners have, those in the 51% owners have over the business. And then the size and personal net worth of the minority owner or owners. So if there's more than one owner that make up that 51% ownership, we're going to look at both of your personal net worth. If it's just one, we just look at the one. So the Office of Minority Business Enterprise are the ones who take care of all of these things. There's a couple of things worth mentioning. A lot of federal funds are administered through state agencies in the Department of Transportation. So as such, the office here, Office of Minority Business Enterprise, provides what they call a uniform certification application. So what that does is it allows you to not only obtain state level certification, the MBE, but it allows you to identify if you also want to pick up the federal government's disadvantaged business enterprise certification, the airport concessions, DBE, or a small business enterprise. Now, those three federal certifications are specific to Department of Transportation funded projects where the federal government is the primary funder. So for you, you have to realize, or you have to take a look at your business. You have to figure out, are the units in the Department of Transportation going to purchase what I buy or what I sell? I'm sorry. And if that's the case, then it may be to your benefit to consider the uniform certification application to try to get the other certifications that come with it. For that, you can go to their website, Office of Minority Business Enterprise. They have a link there for certifications and required forms, so you can look more at what that entails. And I also would just tell everybody, if you're interested in getting this MBE certification, they have a part of their website for application workshops and assistance. Okay, so they do have workshops that will walk you through the process. They'll explain everything I'm talking about in greater detail, including even identifying someone that can help you go through your application process and make sure everything is complete. Next slide. Fiscal year spent for 2019 in the MBE space was 1.3 billion. MBE payments were made, and that went to 1,269 MBE firms in the state of Maryland. Next. So this is just sort of a highlighted notice. All vendors who want to do business with the state, you got to make sure that you are in good standing with the Department of Assessment and Taxation. So when you first start a business, you're going to go through Department of Assessment and Taxation. They're going to let you know that there are certain forms you have to submit annually. And that comes along, obviously, with, I believe it's a $300 fee that comes yearly. If you are failing to send in those forms or paying that particular fee, those are the kind of things that will keep you from being in good standing. So just want to make sure you guys are aware, make sure you're in good standing if you're looking to do business with the state. Next. All right, so just these are the most common tools for how you're going to see solicitations in the state of Maryland. So that's through bids or proposals. And I don't want to spend too much time, but what I will say about these two things is the following. Bids usually means that the state knows its problem and we know the solution, but we're looking for somebody to actually come and do the work. So we're always looking for the best or the lowest price, usually when it's a bid. A proposal usually means we know the problem, we do not know the solution. So we're looking for you to propose a solution. And in these cases, the award is usually going to be based on best value, right? So it may not be the lowest price, but it'll be a combination of price and the quality of the vendor. Although we always look for quality of vendor when it's a bid, we sort of evaluate for the quality, but then we're looking for lowest price. So just keep that in mind. And just as a note, make sure no submissions are never accepted if they're late. And that's very important. Next slide. So two evaluating factors that are always in play here, whether it's a bid or a proposal, is how responsive and how responsible you are as a business. Responsive is relating to the documents that are being requested from the state, right? So when a solicitation comes out and you read it, make sure that you're going to submit the documents that are being asked for and that you're doing it according to the date or the deadlines that are posted. So we look at that as an evaluative factor. The more responsive you are, of course, the better. That means that that says something about the quality of how you manage the business. So it's important that you understand that part. You read everything thoroughly, make sure you have all the documents, submit everything on time. That means responsive. Responsible is now relating to your technical, your financial capability to actually deliver on whatever the scope of services are for that particular contract. So we're looking at reliability, integrity factors, and that's what responsible relates to. And these two are always going to be in play as we evaluate who we're choosing to do business with. Next slide. So procurement categories, this can sometimes be confusing, but I want you to think about it in two buckets. Small procurements is one bucket, formal procurements is the other. Next slide. So in small procurements, there's a state law that states that any contract over 15,000 has to be listed publicly on EMA, on the online portal. So category 1 and 2 don't meet that particular standard. They're $15,000 and below. So as a result of that, category 1 is anything that's $0 to $5,000. And category 2 are any contracts of 5,000 to 15,000. Now, when that occurs, they engage in a direct solicitation method, right? So this is more of someone being able to go through like the Rolodex as an example, or aging myself a little, but so people, you're talking about buyers at the state agencies who determine they have a need. They're going to go out directly to 3 or 4 different vendors that they have on a list that they've been able to identify somehow, and they're going to go out directly to you. So the competition is not this broad competition, it's smaller. And so they handle this through a different way than formal procurements, right? So the award at the end of the day is going to be based primarily on that buyer's judgment of who provided them the best value, the best price, and everything. Again, that's category 1 and 2. So next slide. So because of the law I mentioned that everything $15,000 or over 15,000 has to be listed, category 3 of small procurements is 15,000 to 50,000. It now starts to behave just like a formal procurement of 50,000 and above. So it's going to go through the same process. Now a written solicitation is required. It has to be published on EMA. You have to get at least 2 valid quotes, and then the award is going to go to the lowest, most responsive and responsible bidder, if it's a bid, or the best, most responsive and responsible offer, if we're talking about a proposal. Okay, and so this is how, these are the main ways that you're going to see procurements come out. So when it goes over that 15,000, it takes on a bid and proposal solicitation method. So it's a formal procurement method, very different than if it's below the 15,000, then that's treated through a direct solicitation. Now, the best way for me to tell you to connect with the small procurement opportunities that do not get listed is you have to identify MBE and SBR liaisons at the agencies, and they're sort of your entry point. And you have to be proactive enough to ask. I want to know about those 15,000 or below opportunities that are not listed, and try to get yourself on the list of whoever handles those types and that size procurement opportunity. Next. All right, so I'm going to go over a couple of things which are contracting pipelines. These are really resources that you can use to identify opportunities and gather some business intelligence about how do you navigate or do business with the state of Maryland, okay? There's a third one, but I'm not gonna highlight that today because it's our procurement forecast, and tomorrow is the end of the fiscal year. And so that forecast is not gonna be active. And so there's not gonna be anything for you to search under that particular resource at this point. Most likely it'll take between now and the end of July before we can upload everybody's information and have a list for the next fiscal year of what our state agencies looking to buy or are projecting that they would like to buy in the future. Okay, so since I don't have anything to offer you with that right now, I just want to mention it, but I'm not going to go over it for the rest of this presentation. Next. So the eProcurement platform, again, EMA, the Maryland Marketplace Advantage. This was launched back in July of 2019, last year. It is free to register as a vendor. What it does is that based on what you put on your profile as far as product and services codes, this allows the system to make a match. So if the procurement officers are using the same codes you have in your profile regarding products and services, it automatically will generate a notice to let you know, hey, a solicitation came out that matches those codes, okay? The system is also meant to eventually move us to a completely electronic sort of online way to respond to the bids online, view awards, and other things. Not everything in EMA is 100% active as of yet, but a good amount of these features are. So, you know, it's working pretty well. One other thing is just make sure, apart from being in good standing, you have to be registered in EMA if you want to do business with the state. So those two things have to occur, okay? Next. All right, so the best way that I can tell you to go through the vendor registration process is I'm going to tell you there's things you have to do before you go and try to register for EMA or start using the EMA platform. Now, this is procurement.maryland.gov. This is sort of the central hub for all things procurement in the state of Maryland. This is under the Office of State Procurement. This is also a new aspect of how we do procurement in the state. It used to be that we had different agencies that were called control agencies. They've collapsed the majority of those into one. They fall under Office of State Procurement through Department of General Services. So if you go to the website at this time, you're going to see they still have things for COVID-19, notice to suppliers, things that you can search if that's your space and you have things you can provide. I circled at the top left where you would go to click to log in or register. I would not recommend that you go immediately to this site and go to the login and register immediately until you do the next few things I'm going to talk about first. So next slide. So from that first page, as you scroll down, I'd recommend you go down to where it says EMA User Assistance, and you click there for quick reference guides. Next. So what you're going to find when you go to that part is you're going to find these buttons, these tiles, each of one, and there might be more than 9. I only have about 9 listed here, but what it does is going to give you different instructions or guides on how to do different things, registering as a vendor, how to manage your profile, and different things. It even has one specifically there, number 7, for SBR certification, right? So these are usually pretty good guides. A lot of them are screenshots of what you would actually see as you go through the process yourself. My recommendation is look at the ones that apply depending on where you are as a business. So if you are not at a point where you can start responding to a solicitation, please don't go to that part yet, right? Register, look at how to manage the profile, SBR certification, look at the things that apply. They also added recently a couple of training videos that you can also look at that go over some basics that I would recommend you review first. Next slide. So one of the things that you do, when I mentioned service and product codes, the system, EMA system, uses the UN SPSC codes. This is a combination of United Nations, Dun & Bradstreet. So they put together sort of an international coding system for businesses. That's what the EMA system uses. Our recommendation is go here first, look at the things based on the titles that match what your product and services are, identify as many of those that you think fit, and then highlight them so that when you go back to register, and after I talk about some other functions you should do, you'll have a better sense for what product and service codes am I going to input into my profile so that I can actually create the best opportunity for a match to occur. Okay, so do these things first. Next. Then I recommend that you go to the actual EMA site. This is the login page. Don't log in. Don't try to register as a new user, but go to the public solicitations and then click on that button. Next. What the system is going to show you, and this is just a partial view of the page. There's more to the right that you won't see on this slide, but you'll see it on your own screen. It'll automatically pre-populate opportunities. Don't just start messing around with the opportunities right away. The suggestion would be, next slide. Right, you get familiar with what's in there. This is the part you couldn't see on the first one, right? But it gives you very valuable information, including solicitation type, issuing agencies, the main category. Those are your product and service titles, and there's codes attached to those. Next slide. All right, so you become familiar with what's on the page, and then I suggest you go to the top where it says keywords, and then input word or few words or the key phrases that will say what it is that you do, what's your product or service, right? So if it's your janitorial, put janitorial services. You may have to play around with that and put cleaning services. You may have to put cleaning products. Anything that relates to what you do, and what that does is it narrows the search so that what pops up on the screen is a little more narrow and more focused on your space, what your product or services are, okay? As an example here, I just highlighted one of the, with the box there, I sort of highlighted an opportunity, right? So if we go to the next slide. So on this search, I did it based on services as the general keyword. It brought up these things. It highlighted what would be in this box. You can see here on the solicitation type, it's a bid, state of Maryland. So what I did is I clicked on that, and next slide popped up. So that page opens up, and then you see more information. The things I want you to concentrate on immediately is the main category, right? That's what your service code are. So if this is something that relates to what you do, and let's say it wasn't one of the codes you had selected previously, now you know that you should add this to your list of codes for your profile so that there's a better match, because you see that the agency uses that one for these type of opportunities. You'll also find the procurement officer's name and their email. All right, so now you have the categories, you have a little more with the summary there. It shows a summary. You have who you can connect with specifically to these opportunities. I don't have it here, but if you were to actually scroll down this page, you actually will have an attachment of the actual solicitation, any revisions, any amendments that have been made to it. So that's what you will see when you use Emma. So for me, go into Emma before you register, see how it works, see what kind of information it gives you, look for the main categories and the subject or the titles of those product and service categories so that you have a better sense for how are you going to fill up your profile so that you can make better matches through the system. Next slide. The next one I'll talk about is Board of Public Works. If you're not familiar with Board of Public Works, that is the comptroller, the treasurer, and the governor. Every other Wednesday, they live stream a review of all opportunities of $200,000 and above. What's good about this is that they list or they document very well what are they going to talk about, what businesses or contracts are they reviewing, and you can gather a lot of business intelligence from this perspective, including identifying prime contractors that you might want to work with, competition in the case that you are a prime contractor and you're capable of opportunities that are in that range over 200,000. So if you were to go ahead and click on that BPW meeting documents, next slide. It's going to give you this page where you can select from the meeting dates that are provided at the bottom there, and you select the agenda. Next slide. And what you do is that it's going to give you it's going to be a long form. You could have 100, 200 pages even. But what you do is you're going to find things like this form that are going to highlight things such as State Highway Administration. This is a contract for architectural and engineering. It's going to tell you who the contact was for that at the top right hand corner. It'll tell you who was awarded this particular contract, the term, the amounts. In this case, it doesn't show it here. In some cases, it'll show everybody who bid for that and that was considered in that final list, and it'll tell you what they bid, how much, the amount. So you learn a lot about who is vying for these opportunities, who are some of these primes I want to deal with, what's the price points that they're working with. So it's great intelligence. It will also give you at the bottom, it highlights in this case, here's one of those federal funded Department of Transportation contracts, right? It's to the State Highway Administration, but it's mentioning a DBE participation. That's a disadvantaged business enterprise. So if you are certified in both the MBE and your DBE, which is automatic, you just have to let them know you want both, you can then actually try to vie for these kinds of contracts, or you know that you're eligible to be a subcontractor for that 27% that they've got here. This one even shows that they have the incumbent. So again, great information you can gather from Board of Public Works. So it's recommended that you use these as you sort of prepare yourself for entering into doing business with the state of Maryland. We'll go to the next slide. We're finishing up. So next slide. So finally, I'll just go over our website real quick. A couple of things I'll highlight. Our website is gomdsmallbiz.maryland.gov. Two things you want to keep in mind is on the front page, there's this top picks to that lower right. And then at the top there, resources. This is also where you would go for the procurement forecast when it is active later in July. So if you were to hit resources, next slide. What I want to highlight here is that we provide various things that are could be helpful for you. Right now, we're doing maybe every other week, I believe, a small business bulletin that comes out continuously. The next one will be out this Wednesday. And we just have various information that could be useful to you. Here you also have things such as the opportunity to look at other procurement opportunities that are not just the state of Maryland. And I failed to mention this earlier, but Emma as a platform doesn't only give you state opportunities. We allow for universities, local governments, other quasi-governmental agencies around the state of Maryland to use our platform to advertise their opportunities as well. So when you enter your information and you do a search, you're going to get things that are for the state, but you might also get stuff that's for the county, for this school, for the public school system, for a university. Another way to sort of hit some of those opportunities is you go to this resources page, and if you were to either go to the right-hand side above the Maryland logo, you can see we have something there for university and college procurement connections, or county procurement connections. So those are counties and universities and colleges that you can go to their particular procurement pages. If you were to hit pipeline, you'll see that opens up other things. There's other things such as financial or lending programs or institutions. So that's some of the things that you can get from our website. Let's go to the next one. Next slide. And we're almost done, I promise. So the last thing I want to highlight from the top pick on that first page, as I mentioned, the SBR and your MBE liaison. So we have a list of who those people are for each agency. Sometimes it's the same person, sometimes it's a different person, but these are your entry points, especially for the small procurements that we talked about that do not get listed in the state of Maryland, Emma, because of the way things are, right? So this is a great resource that you can use for yourself. The only last thing I'll highlight is if you were to hit the events button that you see there, we try to list as many events going around the state of Maryland as possible so that people can join things such as what you're doing today or other events that are going on. So you can go to the next one. I believe we're right at the end there. That's my information. Since this is recorded, you can always go back and you can see where my email is. You can always reach out to me, or if you connect with us and you go to our website, at the bottom of that, there's a window, small window that says stay connected. If you were to give us your email and you send it that way through the website, what we do is we'll add it to our database. And so when we send anything out that goes out in mass, you'll be on that list. So thank you for everything, and I appreciate your time. And any questions, we'll get to them now.
Thank you, Mr. Hayden. So we actually do have a few questions for you.
Okay.
One is about the SBR program. When you said that small business eligibility standards relate to for-profit businesses, other than brokers, did you mean a stockbroker or a real estate broker?
No, there's a category for businesses that consider themselves brokers. By that meaning, what they do is that they broker certain things, but they're sort of in a particular category of their own. And so if you're a small business and all you're doing is brokering the transactions or the deliveries of products from one place to the other, you don't really handle any kind of products, or your only service is to broker certain things. That's what that's referring to. It's referring to if you're a small business, you have to be a for-profit business other than a broker. And the reason for that, there's things that we can, if someone wants a deeper dive into that, I can always get some information from our legal and policy person that sort of explains why that is. And a lot of that has to do with people using those individuals as pass-throughs. So they're not, and So that's a hard one for me to explain, but that's what that refers to.
Okay, thank you. Maria, if you did have any other questions, he did share his email, so you can follow up with Mr. Hayden that way if you need further clarification.
Yeah.
Or another question, if an agency created an IFB, can it be shared with other agencies to piggyback off of?
You mean if, I guess they're meaning there are some instances, now the Department of General Services typically would handle things of that nature. So they're sort of the only, outside of them and MDOT, Department of Transportation, DGS primarily will handle certain contracts where they're the ones who are going to sort of put things together for another agency. So the transaction may be that the people paying for it is, I don't know, Department of the Environment, right? But DGS is in a better position to acquire the products or services. Then they enter or they will sort of work together for an agency to do that. And so DGS they will buy things that other agencies can work off of or benefit from them purchasing it for others. But that usually will only go through DGS for the most part. It used to be Do It, which was the IT, used to do things like that because they're buying products that every other agency will use. DGS, that now falls on. So that's the answer to that. Again, more specifics, I could connect you with somebody from the Office of State Procurement that could get deeper into that process there. But there is a little bit of that can occur when DGS will purchase certain things for other state agencies.
Okay, thank you.
I
And
hope that answers your question.
I shared your email address again on the chat for anyone that has any like more clarifications for these questions that we're asking. And then the last question that we had in the chat right now was, are there any plans to further fund some of the state COVID-19 grant or loan programs that have been closed because they were closed now? Are there any plans to reopen those or supply them more funding?
Not that I am aware of. The Department of Commerce sort of oversaw any of the funding that was provided for those things to occur. Obviously, you probably had more people in need than we had probably funding to go around. And that's true, I think, at every state level as well as every level, including federal. So I do not believe that there's anything in that space. Right now, I think all states really across the country are really looking at what kind of budget cuts is everybody going to have to contend with for the next fiscal year as we try to recover from all of this. You know, the money that comes into, unless there's other federal funding that comes out specific to those kinds of things. From the state perspective, right now, I don't see any funding coming that relates to that. I think they're just dealing with whatever requests they had, giving out whatever money may be left related to those requests. But again, unless federal funding is given, I don't know that anything else is going to happen there. Not that I want to be bearer of bad news, but that's just the realistic view we have right now. We're just kind of waiting to see what happens.
Okay, thank you so much. Brooke, next slide. So now we're going to open up the questions and answers from any of our speakers today, or if you have any just general questions for the city, we'd like to answer those for you right now. So please, if you do have any questions, put them in the chat box. But we did have a couple of questions for Dr. Unegbu. The first one would be precautions for rideshare. I guess what suggestions would you give for people that need to use ride sharing services.
Yeah, thank you very much for that question. That was very good. Yeah, for the ride share, the recommendation, according to the CDC, is that prior to you getting in to share a ride with someone, you may want to check yourself. Make sure that you don't have any symptoms like coughing, shortness of breath, or even fever. Now, if you do that, that will again help, and wear your mask. That will help to reduce the frequency of the infection or transmission. And on the other hand, if you are in that ride and you feel sick, the recommendation according to CDC is to, maybe contact your supervisor and try to go and contact your primary care physician to be able to seek medical care. But do not continue on in that ride with your friend to go on to work, because again, you're actually going to put yourself and put the co-rider and even for the other employees at risk. So this is according to CDC. So you can have it, but prior to that, check yourself first.
Okay, thank you. And then we have one other question for you. Do you have any safety suggestions for childcare businesses?
Well, that's a tough one, because trying to hold the kids not to run around. But basically, the major part is the employees there, the adults, and they have to follow the guidelines according to CDC. Make sure they cover themselves, make sure they have hand sanitizer, make sure they wash their hands frequently, and try as much to cooperate with the social distancing. But when it comes to kids, again, prior to guiding them or their child care, you have to make sure that you're not symptomatic and you don't have you're actually protected. I think that's the guideline. The daycare centers are going to be opening up, but I think the reliance now will be more on the adults that will be given the care, and also the parents, to ensure that if their kids are showing any signs and symptoms, they don't have to take them to the daycare center too.
Thank you so much. We also have Alicia Moran from Prince George's County Economic Development Corporation with us here. She did post a good reminder in the chat for you. So if you do have any questions for Alicia at the county level, you can ask those as well. And Alicia, you're more than welcome to join the call if you do want to say a few words.
Thank you, Leigha. I just wanted to remind everybody, it is in the chat that June 30th is the deadline for the Paycheck Protection Program. It is the very 11th hour. If anybody is still trying to apply for that, you may want to go to a fintech entity this evening to see if you can apply online, either through Cabbage or Square or PayPal or Bluevine, one of the other online entities. Otherwise, City First Bank has been still accepting applications in case your local bank cannot accept applications. The other thing that I would just suggest is that, and remind everybody, in case you missed it early on, the Small Business Administration actually had the economic injury disaster loan early on. Some of you may have applied, some of you may have thought, no, I don't want a loan right now. I don't think I need a loan. As time has gone on, you may feel that, well, that might be a good opportunity for me. There is a program that they have, again, that program has reopened. It ran out of money, so it closed at a certain point. So people may have missed the opportunity. It is now reopened to businesses. So if you are a small business owner, who has not applied for that and has been impacted by COVID-19, know that there is $1,000, up to $1,000 per employee. I'm sorry, up to $10,000 grant overall. It is $1,000 per employee or per person. So that grant will be provided to you no matter whether you get the loan or accept the loan. down the line. So that is another potential grant opportunity for small businesses. So you could apply for the loan, and even if you don't accept the loan at a later date, you may get a portion of it that is a grant. And additionally, the loan itself is a lower interest loan and does not have any repayment until about 13 months after you receive the loan. So there is, and it's a 30-year loan. So you have a lot of time to repay it. You have a window of deferral before you have to make payments. And again, if you are in need of extra cash or worried about your cash flow coming up, this could be a good funding opportunity for you. So I did want to mention that. So thank you, Leigha, and thank you everybody for what a fabulous program you have put together once again in Laurel. So we just so appreciate Laurel Economic Development, and just know that Prince George's County Economic Development Corporation is here to help businesses in any way possible. We do have a loan and grant program ourselves, and that program is now closed. The application is closed, but we do know that there are Laurel businesses and others that hopefully will be receiving money or have already received money. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Alicia, for all of that information. That was very helpful. So it looks like that we don't have any other questions at this time. So I just want to thank all of our speakers for taking their time and being with us today to share all that valuable information with our business community. And I want to thank everyone that attended tonight for this. And then just to remind you, if you do need assistance at all, please send us an email at ecd@laurel.md.us. We'd be happy to assist you with anything that you need. And just a reminder, this recording will be posted to Laurel TV's YouTube page, and I will link that once again in the chat box. So if you do have any other lingering questions, please feel free to add them in the chat box, and we can have some of our speakers answer them if they're still available. Other than that, have a great night, and thank you so much again for attending.
Thank you.
Thank you, Leigha. Appreciate it.